First and foremost, I want to just thank Alon, who's sitting there. In my screen, he's in the corner. And he has been largely responsible for bringing together, well, he's been responsible for bringing together the team who's going to teach for us today. And he is, of course, the founder and director of the Elijah Interfaith Institute. And Elijah Interfaith is one of the partners in Praying Together in Jerusalem. And I introduced, before we started, other members of the Praying Together team, your facilitators in the discussion group, Russ and Taleb and Reuven. And we're delighted that they're with us today. We are particularly grateful that we are gathering on the World Day of Prayer, which is actually a US initiative. And when we began this Praying Together in Jerusalem 5 years ago now, of course, we were praying on the last Thursday of every month. And we just decided, we made a decision some months ago that we were going to switch to the first Thursday of every month. And one of our motivations, not the only one, but one was that Interfaith Harmony Week is always the first week of the month. It seemed a shame that we never coincided. And of course, now we have the World Day of Prayer, which is also the first Thursday in the month. So in fact, those of us who believe in divine handling, the blessing that this month we switched to the first Thursday of the month, and therefore were in line with, I guess, this important World Day. So this is one thing that I wanted to mention. The other thing is that, of course, it's Ramadan, and our gathering this afternoon, this evening, or this morning for those in the States is dedicated to the fact that it is a special Ramadan gathering. For those of us in the Jewish tradition, we're also in the period of counting the Omer, counting the days from Pesach, Passover, to Shavuot, the time of the giving of the law. And it is wonderful those years when Ramadan and this month of Iyar coincide. We are all in intense counting and spiritual growth. And I really feel some global dynamic of Jews and Muslims at the same time in spiritual growth. It is our absolute pleasure to begin today's program with Rabbi Tamar Elad Applebaum, who is truly a world religious leader. She is the rabbi of a congregation here in Jerusalem, but this congregation has expanded beyond the walls of the community.
And I think there's no better way to enter this Sabbath but by entering together. I see faces of people I know and love, and friends of the community, from the community, and also people from other places that I don't know. But I feel that these days are days of closeness, that show us how close we are, what a family we are. And whenever I read what happens in different continents, in different nations, my heart aches and cries. And so I want to thank you, because this moment strengthens me. And I hope that we'll strengthen each other by this kind invitation to think of what we can take and make of this moment. I come from a community, and I belong to a community called Zion in Jerusalem, a community that was created really through friendship of many different people, Jews from different denominations and really beyond any denomination, who came together to create a world of brotherhood, of togetherness, but never stopped in the Jewish story. Through the Jewish story and through the Jewish partnership and tradition, opened up to know more people from other traditions. And today we have many friends who changed our lives, and they're already family, and there are teachers and our brothers. And so I walk in the streets of Jerusalem 45 years after being born here. I think of what a difference and what a change was created in my life. When I was young, I knew Orthodox Jews. That was the world I belonged to. And today I walk in the street and I know many different Jews and I know many different people. And the human family seems to me like the family I want to belong to. So these moments together, they're family. and their moments of belonging, and I thank you for that. And I think in this topic of solitude, which was chosen for our time together, I really think of my teacher, Rabbi Michael Gretz. And the first time I came to his house, it was 20 years ago. I was a young Israeli. And I went into his house and I saw a very big picture, a photo. It was huge in the middle of the living room. And I just became his disciple. And suddenly he put me into a test and he asked me, why do you think I chose this picture? And I stood for a few moments and I looked and I saw a beautiful field and a person walking in it. And I knew that he chose this photo because there was one person walking there in the vastness of life and of this world, by himself, by herself, and yet walking. And I think it's the story of every human being, and it's the story of every soul invited to walk in the field of this world, knowing that some of the walk will be together, but much of it will also be alone. And I remember in that moment the words of the prophet Habakkuk, who says, "V'tzadik be'emunato yichyeh." The righteous will live by his faithfulness. That the righteous does not live only according to other people. He doesn't need to validate it by other people. The righteous knows that he has a conversation, an ongoing, deep conversation with his God, with our God. He asks questions, he waits for answers, he's led, and he listens to the voice. Prayer never starts with the mouth. It always starts with the ear. And I think a life of a human being is really a life that needs some solitude. There was a rabbi 2,000 years ago who said that the righteous of Habakkuk is not a righteous person. It's the righteous with a capital T and a capital R. It's God himself walking in the vastness of the world he created. And he lives by his faithfulness. So solitude is not only for human beings, according to Jewish tradition. Solitude is something that happens to all people in different ways all the time. And it's an invitation by life itself, by God, Hashem, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the divine himself, herself, to be walking in this life with introspection, with time, serious time, to check ourselves. It's not only something that Jewish tradition holds in thought, in theory. This is actually the story of Jewish tradition, the story of leaving, when Abraham leaves everything he knows. And God tells him, according to the Torah, to the Bible, to the sacred text of the Jews, go from your country, your people, your father's household, to the land I will show you. Who heard that voice besides him? And yet he believes, he listens. And that was the first moment of solitude, creating at least the Jewish tradition, but also really being heard in different tradition and echoed in different tradition, which I so await to learn today and always. And yet in Hebrew, it's a bit different than in the translation. It doesn't only say, go from your country, your people, and your father's household, but it says, lech lecha, go to yourself. That really the invitation of God is that we go to ourselves. It takes a whole lifetime to go slowly into that soul that was put into us. And the rabbis teach, they say, what does it mean to go to yourself? To go lonely sometimes, to ask who we are. Do I agree that we're all so different? Nations and boundaries, Christians and Muslims and Jews, and so many different rich traditions of faith all around us and with us. Maybe we all hold something so similar, and we could really feel it in these days of Corona if we stop looking from the outside and see the inside. And suddenly it's not about all these things in the outside. It's really about just a soul inside me that is walking towards me and towards humanity and in that place where it meets. This, to me, is Jewish practice. It is a practice of solitude, and solitude is a very significant part of it. And I want to just show, according to the way I understand Jewish tradition and have been learning it, how the two big coordinates of life, which is space and time and space, are an invitation for solitude and self-reflection and quietude. If we look at Shabbat, one of the most important laws of the Sabbath is that everyone is to stay where they are on the seventh day. Not go outside, not go far away, know new things, run away from what we know. On the contrary, not to go to other places, go to this place inside us. That is a place so true, so delicate, so fragile. Most of the time I feel that our soul is calling us. It's calling, it says, Tamar. It's calling, it says the names of each one of us. And many, many times it's so hard to listen to it because so many things are happening. The hustle and bustle of life, of work, so much achievement. And in these days, I don't hear much. The streets outside are still pretty empty. Here in the city of Jerusalem, there's less hustle and bustle. People are guarding themselves, which I'm so happy they and all of us are. And I can hear my soul calling me. And I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to sit with my soul because it's the closest place to God. And I know that when I listen to another person listening to his soul, I'm witnessing the closest place to God. And not only in the realm of time, also in the realm of place. And to me, the realm of place is the whole world, but also Jerusalem, that embodies universalism in the most beautiful way for me, the way I feel it. And I thought about a beautiful phrase in Psalms. And it says in Psalms 76, that the tent of God is Salem, and he dwells in Zion. And I love this feeling that God sits in a tent, not in a big built house, in a simple tent. And there was a rabbi called Rabbi Brachia 2,000 years ago, and he asked, what was God doing in a tent? Why didn't he go around the world? And he said, because God was doing solitude, listening to his soul. So in time, in the Sabbath, and in space, in the tent of Jerusalem, God is inviting all of us to join him and to listen to our soul as close as we can get. There was a rabbi who said, Rabbi Nachman of Breslav, that each and every one of the practices in Jewish tradition is only to have and make solitude. We read books. Many times you see Jews reading books, as in many other traditions and faiths, only to be able to make solitude, to be behind a book, not in order to read it, but to have a room of our own, as said Virginia Woolf, so that in that little room of our own, we could have time for ourselves. And he says, don't read, just hold the book, so you can have a place of your own where you can make solitude. And he says, and when you study and when you pray, like we do right now, it's also solitude, because what you're actually doing, he says, is creating a respiratory machine. It's not a physical one, it's a spiritual one, in which suddenly we understand that this is the heart, and on it there are two lungs, and those lungs are like wings of a bird, and we breathe. That's all we do, we breathe. I'm now breathing thanks to you. I'm catching my breath, which in Hebrew, neshima, is very close to the word soul, neshama. So my breath meets me with my soul. And it's thanks to you. And then I could send it to you through the flood, through the coronavirus. And I can feel when you talk, when you pray, and when you listen, the breath. And in such a way, we give strength. And we also give permission to go back to solitude, to see this as an entrance to solitude. Solitude in Hebrew, badad, hitbudedut, It comes from the word branch, like a koala bill. That when we make solitude, we hold a branch and we just hold it. Our branch. It's our branch. Each and every one of us has his branch in this world. But when we put our ear on it, we could hear the whole tree, the roots, and all the branches, and all the leaves. And suddenly we hear not only our heartbeat, and our breath, and our soul, but everything's heartbeat, the one soul, the one breath. And so that quiet time is listening, like a child listening to the heartbeat of his mother, or she listening to his. We're putting our ear on the branch and listening to the heartbeat of the world. So I hope for all of us that these moments of gathering together are going to be moments in which we're going to gather all the richness, all the gifts of all spiritual traditions, and give ourselves permission to really breathe together and enter ourselves even more. Go forth into ourselves and meet God as close as we can get. And I thought about the prayer that I was invited to pray and end with. And if it's okay, I wanted to end with one prayer that we in Sion, in our community, wrote for these days. And then just to ask to end together in a form. So I want to read this prayer for healing that we wrote. Creator of universe, God of grace and mercy, healer of the sick, uplifter of the fallen and liberator of the captured, healer of all flesh and worker of all wonders. Be merciful with us, God. Be merciful in these days of darkness, these days of plague, of fear and worry, care and trembling. As multitudes in your world fall ill and die or heal. On this day, 3,781,896 people who are ill in our world. On these days, 2,6,400 people, 602 people who have died from this virus, from this plague. On this very day, hold us, have mercy on us, do not abandon us, and let us hold each other and not abandon anyone, any person, any soul, any people. Grant us the grace to be free, to be merciful and kind, to pray for all people, to heed the love and honor deserved by each human being in your world. Grant us the grace that we will not scorn or condemn the life of any person in the entire world. And we will merit to safeguard this precious life and shield it and shield the life of all the people around us. And remember that the divine image is in every person. And to cry over all dead and strengthen those who are healing and convalescing. Grant us the merit to support each other and heal our world together in body and soul in these days and the days that will come after. To have mercy and compassion on the oppressed, to accompany the heartbroken and the mourners and those who heal, to support the hearts of all the nurses and doctors and rescuers and carers. El narefana la. El narefana la. God, please heal us. God, please heal us. God, please heal us. Heal us all, please. Hear our voice, for you have made all flesh and worked all wonders. Heal us so we will heal. Save us so we will be saved. Blessed are you, hearer of our prayers. Next year, in Jerusalem and in the world of health. And I invite everyone to end with a Jewish known prayer and with a method I have learned from my friend who leads in Zion, the community, and the whole world of education in our community, Desi Bilkovich, to put your hands on the screen so we can touch each other. Find a way so we can be one. I know it sounds weird for some of us, touching a screen, but the screen is only a metaphor for the ability to hold each other. And while we touch this screen and put our hands and feel that all can be one, all is one, I will say the words Shema Yisrael, the Hebrew words that say that everything is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Thank you, Tamar. I'd like to ask everybody just to join you and us in a moment of silence, just to absorb the incredible messages you've brought us, messages of concern, but also incredible hope, and the idea of opening our hearts and the wings on our hearts. So let's take a moment just to absorb what you've given to us in silence. Thank you. Our next teacher is going to have to come to us through a very strange communication, because in Pakistan, it's the middle of the, well, not the middle of the night, but it's already evening. His computer has broken. He's in isolation and cannot use another computer or get anyone to come to his computer. So Suheyl, Umar Suheyl Muhammad, who is an enormous friend of the Elijah Interfaith Institute. He's a member of the Elijah Board of World Religious Leaders, and I would say an indispensable member of the Elijah community, is going to speak to us through Alon's phone. So I hope that this double distancing, we talk about social distancing, and many of our leaders have said, no, it's not social distancing, it's physical distancing. But in this case, we have a double physical distancing. And I'm hoping that the technology will still allow us to hear him, because he's a wonderful teacher and friend and member, as I say, of the Elijah Board of World Religious Leaders.
His computer was repaired, broke again. And we don't know if this is going to work. I've got him on video on the WhatsApp, but it means he has a dumb phone, and therefore he can't run Zoom on his smartphone. So tell me, first of all, everyone, are you able to see there? You can see Suheyl, right? I'm holding him up. That's what we do at Elijah. We hold each other up. So,
because from our Muslim perspective, among all the acts of worship which are incumbent, this act of worship, Ramadan, that is a fasting, is the most inward, the most interiorized, in the sense that it's just between you and God. Nobody else knows it, whether what's going on, what are you doing. And that is the reason that according to Islamic lights, God specifically said that fasting is for me, and I myself is the reward. So it's a time of great interiority, of inwardness, because you are taking an attitude towards your body, an attitude towards your mental acts, an attitude towards your impulses, the attitude towards your appetites, which is completely inward. Outwardly, you are just normally in the world, but the act of worship which you are performing through your whole being is highly interiorized. And it's as if your whole focus of your being, your consciousness, is drawn or withdrawn towards the inward, which is one of the divine aspects, the deepest of the divine aspects of the ultimate reality. That he is the inward, it is the inward and the outward at the same time. So during Ramadan, through the act of fasting, through the worship of fasting, one is automatically in an ambience of interiority, of inwardness, and inner connection between the reality towards this, with which this act of rebinding through the worship of fasting, because religion, as we understand it, is a perennial bond which was broken at the time of the fall, and it's religio on the level of our intellect, on the level of our body, on the level of our of our inner state, spiritual and ethical. We rebind ourselves toward the ultimate reality. So Ramadan is first of all this, but our outward situations in which we are passing through in Pakistan, in the lockdown and the corona restrictions, which imposed solitude on everybody. And an ordinary person is not prepared. His habits, lifestyle is not such to live or enjoy solitude, or to be happy or joyously accept that interiority. Even when an ordinary Muslim is going through the period, the month of fast, these inner difficulties, barriers do come up, and these pose a problem. But when we as a collectivity have been thrown into that, in this solitude, situation of solitude, an ordinary person, an ordinary soul is not prepared for that solitude. Because in normal circumstances, during Ramadan, after the breaking of fast, there is a lot of festivity. During the day, you are in another mood, but after the breaking the fast. But in this situation, this solitude is a continuous thing. So for a disciplined soul or an initiated soul, this solitude is a blessing, that it adds and enhances the effects of Ramadan, the interiority, the inward connection with the inward, and gives him more opportunity through this solitude. And it's a constant reminder of the divine solitude and the human condition, the one in front of absolutely one. But in this, when we come to this, we have to instruct people around us that how to benefit, to give them a framework to benefit from this imposed solitude to the maximum. And instead of, since they are not used to it, so how to use that solitude, how to put it to good use by creating some awareness of the basic truths of human life, of human condition, And then this solitude, which everybody is passing through, is beneficial in two ways. That it gives them more time to, first of all, to think about themselves, to think about the human condition, to think about their religious, doctrinal commitment, and give it a depth. Secondly, what is ignored in modern day life because of so many factors which all of us know and lament quite often, the structure of human life, interpersonal relationships, and many other things are under great stress put by this modern lifestyle. So this solitude, these moments of complete isolation or semi-isolation, gives the families and individuals another chance, if we give them the proper framework, to rebuild, rethink, rebuild, reconnect these relationships as well, which are not functioning normally in the modern world in most of the cases, while even among the religious people. A typical example that 4 or 5 people are sitting in one room and everybody is talking to his or her gadget, not to the other person, not to wife or husband or sister or sibling or anybody. It's a very common scene everywhere in the world, and Pakistan is no exception. Even the religious people are no exception. So this isolation, this solitude also gives us a chance to divert their attention towards this very an important aspect of human life, which has been deteriorating over the years. So the spiritual side of solitude and this, you can say, social or religious or interpersonal side of solitude, or a beneficial use of solitude. As we did earlier, I think the best thing is offer the counterpart of Amida and the Lord's Prayer in Islam, the opening verse, the Fatiha, which has all these elements in a nutshell. So I would offer that prayer as we did during the interview with you. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise be to God, Lord of the worlds. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, the ever merciful. Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner of the day of judgment. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Now we immediately turn inward. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Only thee we worship, and only we seek only your help in every circumstance. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Lead us towards the path of transcendence. Sirat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim. The path of those upon whom thou blessings and gifts have been. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, not on the path of those who have earned your wrath. وَلَا-الضَّالِّينَ, nor on the path of those who went astray. Ameen.
Amen.
Amen. So, Suheyl, thank you. And what we are going to do, all of us now, is take a moment to absorb what you have shared with us. The idea of Ramadan as an opportunity to go inward, to turn inward, and the solitude that Muslims all over the world are experiencing as a way of extending and enhancing the key message of Ramadan. And all of us together, regardless of our religious affiliation, can benefit from that turning inwards and turning our solitude into an opportunity for spiritual growth. So let's take a moment together to absorb those words and contemplate. So our third speaker, thank you, and Ramadan Kareem to each and every one of us. Our third teacher today is Bishop Marcuzzo, and a dear friend of the Elijah Interfaith Institute through your relationship with Alon, and a presenter at our summer school, and a great leader, religious leader here in Jerusalem. It's indeed a great honor to have you with us, teaching us this afternoon. And
Good evening to all of you, and I am very happy to hear you, to see you even sometimes, and to have this meeting of reciprocal encouragement, spiritual encouragement to all of us. We are in the same boat now, and we have to strengthen ourselves together. We try to strengthen ourselves through our own heritage, the Hebrew, the Christian, the Muslim heritage, very rich. During the century, we had that heritage. We started to take the best advantage of that heritage that we carry and that we should communicate to others. First of all, I invited by our friend Rabbi Alon to speak about the solitude and what the spiritual values of the solitude, especially in the Christian heritage. Well, we have a very rich patrimony of that solitude, what sometimes we call the desert. Not only the solitude, which is not an isolation, is a desert which is full of life, according to the Bible, of course. And why we have a big heritage? Because in the church, as you know, we have many orders who are contemplative, and they build their life on the solitude to find God, to look for God. This is the reason. They are alone. They are, let us say, in a spiritual permanent all their life, to look for God, to look for the word of God, and to live for Him. Now, what we can learn from that experience of the contemplative orders, of the contemplative communities? First of all, they are isolated from the world, not because they don't carry up, they are not concerned about the world, but because they see that everything depends on God, not only for the world. The world, as we can realize now these days in this situation, is very fragile. There is a big vulnerability of the world, of a man, of the human beings, of the human projects. We are very weak. We are sinners. We can't do whatever we want. Everything depends on God. So those people who are dedicated to the contemplative life, they have chosen that kind of life, that kind of spiritual lockdown, because they are convinced, they are persuaded that God is the only answer to the world and the word of God. Now, how? This is my experience during these days of lockdown. First of all, I put a lot of order in my books, in my ideas, in my papers, in my archives. It was wonderful. Thanks. I put a good order in my prayer. We pray a lot, for not only for me, for all the people, for all the people. And we put order. Why? Because I enter to myself, to my mind, to my vocation, to my mission. And I enter to my heart, to my wills, to my will, to my feelings. And I could see if that corresponds to the word of God, to the Bible. We read a lot of passages of the Bible during this time, more than any other time. This time we could enter into ourselves, and as St. Augustine, the great father of the church, said, when you go inside yourself, you find not only yourself, you find God. And if you find your God, you find yourself. There is a wonderful sentence of St. Augustine, if you allow me to read that, is wonderful. More intimate to me than I am to myself. Let me know, O Lord, you, then I shall know myself more. And other thing in the famous books of the Confessions that is written in that book. And by the way, about the experience of the orders of the centuries of the history, about the richness of the solitude, we have a wonderful sentence in Latin. I repeat it, and of course I translate it. O beata solitudo, o sola beatitudo. O blessed solitude, and o unique solitude, or unique beatitude. O beata solitudo, o sola beatitudo. There is a game of words inside, very wonderful, very wonderful. Okay. So to think about, to discover ourselves, to discover better our mission, the mission of the world, of course. And it is not to be isolated from the others, from the world, because after all, we have to go back to our mission, to the world, to the people, to our community. But we go back with a new look, with a new vision. By the way, just that is my personal experience in this time. I received many ideas, many projects now. Of course, it is not said that everything could be realized, executed so easily, but because I have to confront that with other people, with the community, with other people in charge of the society, of the community. But I have already find in myself a new program, a new schedule of projects to be done in the future to do better for the schools, for the community, for the society, for the families, so and so and so. Because I thought a lot, I was thinking a lot, I read a lot about during this time. And this time was, of course, very hard, but in the same time was a blessing, thanks to God. Now, you ask me, Rav Alon, to have a prayer. Is there better than the psalm? I don't think. During this time, we were using the psalm because the psalm are the best expression of our life. This is my experience during this time. But if you allow me, first of all, I would say that during this time we had, and when I say we, I mean all the believers in the church, especially in the church, kinds of a prayer during this time. A prayer, first of all, of lament. Exactly like Jeremiah, the lamentations of Jeremiah. We have to cry, to shout to God, to cry in front of God what we feel, our situation, because this is what the prophets did and what we are called to do, to declare, to manifest our lamentation in front of God. So, and it was wonderful during what we call the Easter time, the Holy Week, to read and to sing the lamentations of Jeremiah in the Bible. Wonderful. And after, our prayer is a prayer of intercession, not only for us, for all the world, for all the people, for all the believers, for all the people, especially those who die, who are suffering, who were, for the people, for the sick people, for all them. And that prayer of intercession is wonderful, is a duty, is a joy to pray for all the people. And at the end is a prayer of silence. Just we keep silent, and we wanted to let God work. The work of God, the grace of God, the strength of God. What can we do? We are very fragile. We are rich of vulnerability. Let God do something. Let Him do and intervene. And this is exactly what I wanted to say when we pray the song. We let God intervene and act in our place, in our world, in our situation. And before saying the best psalm that for me in this time, the psalm number 91, I remember a wonderful sentence of our Saint Teresa of Avila, the founder of the Carmelite order, and the rich of that order. She said the famous sentence in Spanish. I read it in Spanish and I translate it. It is wonderful, and we sing it in all the languages, in all the places all around. Saint Teresa of Avila. Nada te turbe, nada te espante, todo se pasa, Dios se muda. La paciencia todo él alcanza. Cuando Dios tiene, nada te falta, solo Dios basta. I translate a little. Let nothing disturb you. All things pass away. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. He who has God finds he lacks nothing. God is enough. God alone suffices. And now, if you allow me, we pray the Psalm 91. Every day, before going to sleep, we say that psalm, and not only before going to sleep, but during this time, from morning to evening, we repeat the psalm with wonder. Psalm 91. Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find the rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This I declare to the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I am trusting him. For he will rescue you from every trap and protect you from the fatal plague. He will shield you with his wings. He will shelter you with his feathers. His faithful promises are for your armor and protection. Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor fear the dangers of the day, nor dread the plague that stalks in the darkness, nor the disaster of the strikes that at midday. Though 1,000 fall at your side, though 10,000 are dying around you, these evils will not touch you. But you will see it with your eyes. You will see how the wicked are punished. If you make the Lord your refuge, if you make the Most High your shelter, no evil will conquer you, no plague will come near your dwelling. For he orders his angels to protect you everywhere you go. They will hold you with their hands to keep you, for striking your foot on stone. You will trample down lions and poisonous snakes. You will crush fierce lions and serpents under your feet. The Lord says, I will rescue those who love you. I will protect those who trust in my name. When they call on me, I will answer. I will be with them in trouble. I will rescue them and honor them. I will satisfy them with a long life and give them my salvation. Amen. Thank you, Lord. Thank you to all of you, to your solidarity, and let us encourage ourselves. We are in the same boat to go ahead and to go again to our normal life with a new life, with a new vision for the God and for the building of mankind, of safety and of peace in the world. Thank you to you.
Amen. You can
Amen.
possibly see that the sun is setting in Jerusalem. It's a beautiful evening, and you, Bishop, you gave us such an uplifting, joyous celebration of solitude. And this is one of the incredible things when we gather and praying together in Jerusalem every month. We say we have to have silence together for two purposes. And the first is the purpose that you've just given us, the celebration of what we have. We are so privileged. We are so blessed to be here together and to hear such wisdom and teaching. What a blessing. And at the same time, we have our silence together to think about those who are not as privileged as we are. In this case, those who are ill, those who are bereaved, and those who suffer even outside this particular crisis that we're all going through. So we need to have silence together again to take in these joyous words that the Bishop just shared with us, that of confidence, so much confidence and so much good and so much ability to make use of the solitude, and at the same time, the concern for others who are not so privileged. So let's have our final moments of silence together as a group.
We know that Ramadan is usually, according to the custom, a month of joys, of festivities, of gatherings together. How can our brothers put that situation, that kind of custom, according to what he said, the solitude? Because I believe that Ramadan could be a blessing of solitude, really, for all the people, for all the believers. Even I know some Christians who are least on Friday like the Muslim, as a common feeling with the Muslims, and for the blessing of the Ramadan. But how we can manage to put together the joy, the situation of joys and festivities with the solitude, the privilege of the solitude, to put together. This, maybe he has a good experience about that.
So I'm dialing him even as we talk. I see
Yes.
we have some Muslim brothers here. So I want to give a chance to, I see Sam Hussein is here. I know Tzvi is here. So there are people with greater expertise than me in Islam.
Sure, I don't mind saying something.
Introduce yourself though.
Oh yeah, I'm Sam. I am living in Queens, New York City, and I am what appears to be some sort of university student. If that, I don't know, maybe I'm somehow trying to understand what faith means to me, but I've been raised Muslim my entire life. I am Muslim. I am currently fasting. And Ramadan has been quite interesting for me this year. All my life, we have tried to have some semblance of family and community during Ramadan. And right now, I live in an apartment, and I usually lived with my parents and also with my sisters who live in Australia. And my family's currently separated from one another. My mom left for Australia right before the pandemic began. So right now it's just my dad and I trying to figure out what cooking is, and at the same time also fasting and also praying with one another, next to one another. And honestly, it's been an experience that I can't truly, I mean, on one side, I can definitely differentiate because I don't feel the Muslim community, the Ummah. I can't go to the masjid, which is right opposite of my house, even though I sometimes see the imam walking outside just to maybe, I don't know, leave his keys in there or something. But I don't see anyone going in and out of the masjid. Or I don't even see because there's a church right opposite of the masjid, which sometimes the father of the church would go to the mosque and have some conversations with the imam. I don't even see that happening. And it's definitely a little sad. It's definitely a little lonely. But at the same time, it doesn't really change a lot of things about Islam. And one of the I guess founding ideas is, at least for me, is to pray in the solitude of my home, praying to pursue those prayers, to pursue, I guess, my connection with God in the solitude of my home. And I've done this through intoning prayer. I've done this through reciting prayer. I've done this through reciting the Holy Quran. And honestly, it's different, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for even being able to fast in this month. I'm grateful for even being able to, listen to the adhan every evening right before I break my fast. And more importantly, I'm grateful to share my religious experience with all of you through Zoom.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I cut Sam a little bit short, but we definitely appreciate this living testimony. Thank you, Sam, for sharing that all the way from Queens. And may you and all New Yorkers be safe. Monsignor, I just want to say, Suheyl asked not to be put on because apparently it wasn't so much fun to him to be talking through 3 technological platforms that people he can't see. But he said basically it really depends on the degree of spiritual accomplishment of the person. For people who are more advanced, very often they don't break up into this partying, but they really maintain a much deeper interiority. Other people, he says, they have this balance where during the day they're more interior, and at night they let loose. Is it optimal? No, it's not always optimal. I also want to share something he had spoken to me previously, and that is that the final, Ramadan is divided into 3 parts. The final 10 days is spent by many people by going into the mosque and then into solitude. So actually there's a shift between the different parts of Ramadan where there's a greater sense of interiority and shifting into the mosque. One of the interviews I did with Professor Marcia Hermanson of Loyola in Chicago, she was talking about this year in the same way that Siam was talking about the challenges of this year. She was talking about how everything's going to change this year because you're not going to the mosque. So how do you do that final part of interiority in the family with your wife there? So why doesn't she get to do that? Usually the wife stays home, the man goes to the mosque. This year everybody stays home, so it shifts gender balances. So it shifts from gender, degree of evolution, also local culture. And yes, Monsignor, I can see some of your concerns about your immediate neighbors, and it doesn't fully fit the spiritual vision. So you can say that, it's like what Tamar was talking about earlier, the in-breath and the out-breath. The in-breath is in the day when they go more interior. The out-breath is when they have more of a break.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Michael to say something. He indicated that he'd like to join the conversation. Michael, can you unmute yourself? Wonderful.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am Michael Kagan from Jerusalem. Down the road, I heard the muezzins just before calling for evening prayer. And I too feel isolated from Ramadan this year. I usually participate and sometimes I host iftar in the evenings. I go to the old city where it's strung with beautiful lights like Christmas. Then it's Ramadan and all the kids are in the streets until late at night. And as a Jew, I share their joy. And this year, I can't. I don't think I'll get to an iftar this year. But I wanted to relate to the bishop's question in relationship to Yom Kippur. Okay, Yom Kippur, as you know, is the holiest day of the Jewish year, where we are very, very stringent upon ourselves. For 24 hours, 25 hours, we fast, no food, no drink, very limited connection to people in that sense, very detached from the material world, no washing. And the day is made up of swings between very strong isolation, of deep introspection, of prayer, between the individual, between myself and God, reflecting upon my life, upon my sins, upon my misdeeds, my desire to do better, and gathering in synagogue for the entire day. I don't go home from early in the morning till the end of prayer, and the night before in community, but in my own space, deeply, deeply praying, and then joining together in community for ecstatic song, moving between this ecstatic state of community and then isolation, my own confessional prayers, feeling the pangs of hunger, reflecting upon my own mortality, and then breaking out into such joy. And I'm very blessed to be in an ecstatic prayer community where we move between these two states. So what does it mean theologically? I think it means, and this is, I think, is the essence of the day, that we rise above through the insulation, through the isolation, through the confession, through the humility. We rise above the bonds of this world. And when you get to that point above, when in the prayer that we learned in our groups, when you touch upon reach towards the allness of the everything that is beyond good and evil, beyond me and you, beyond all the dualities, there is just the ecstatic bursting of the soul. And we do it through song, we do it through dance. And there is this continuous dialectic between these two states. If my Muslim brothers experience Ramadan like that, then I know that my Sufi friends do. But that's how we do it on Yom Kippur.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a final contribution? Oh, there are several people, and I'm sorry. We're going to do it very quickly. I'm going to hear Laura, then Maria, if that's okay. And so Laura, then Maria, and then I think we're probably going to have to wind up. So Laura, please.
Thank you so much, dear presenter. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank all of you and organizers, of course, and Alon for organizing. I'm for the first time taking part in it, though I know Alon for a long time because we're meeting at the UNESCO chairs Unity Networks. So I know this.
No, tell them where you're from.
I'm from Kazakhstan, Almaty. Yes, and thank you so much for inviting. I enjoyed really. Just a little bit of my own personal reflections regarding today's speakers and the particularly last questions regarding the way how the Ramadan is held during the Corona situation. And I think, to my mind, Corona gave us a so-called opportunity to not only to reflect and to strict ourselves physically, but to give us opportunity to reflect in our soul. And so, today so many people told us that this spirituality and this solitude are almost, I mean, it's inevitable part of our inner self. And so to get a deeper, more retrospect into us and through us to the other, it means this solitude changed almost the whole concept of socializing, particularly in such cultural, elements of culture as in Ummahs, as in Islam, for example. Because once you, after days fast, you are going open iftar and share your joy with with the community people, and now this opportunity is not fully performed during the Corona situation. So it means at the same time, not the change of the rights per se, but to my mind, it is the change of, or maybe the more impetus given to us to go more deeper into us. So we're socializing, and we have just another digital dimension of socializing. And today, so much enjoyed. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to socialize with all you, and not within one particular community, but with interreligious. And to hear what Tamar also beautifully told us, and from Pakistan's Bishop's speech also was so inspiring. And to me, I think this changing dimension of socializing gives us the opportunity to extend our social community on the one hand, on the other hand, to go deeper into ourselves. So this is perhaps it goes on the merge, as as Michael Kagan now told, it's going deep into us and on the burst of the spirituality, of the joy and of our souls. So it's exactly what in Sufi community experience, and you so nicely now told us is in Jewish community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Maria.
Yes, I would also like to thank each and every one of you for these deep teachings on solitude today by Applebaum and Suheyl and also Bishop. And I just wanted to share that today in the Buddhist tradition, in the Theravada tradition, we celebrate the enlightenment of the Buddha. It's Vesak. It's the day of the full moon. So together with that energy of the World Day of Prayer and all of our sharing, we are also intimately and deeply connected with the Buddhist world on this day. And I was just wanting to share that with you and assure you that also in the Buddhist tradition, of course, it's also a monastic tradition, like Bishop had told us about the Catholic community. So that this deepening in solitude, this deeply reaching into our own heart and spirit, and then to come back and embrace the world outside in love and compassion. I think this is something we all have in common in our traditions. And Bhikkhu Sangasena, who is also one of our members, had sent to all of us Vesak greeting just yesterday. And he just quoted the Buddha saying, "Be a light unto yourselves and strive without wasting any time." I think sometimes when we hear from social media how people get so bored and they're spending their time on computer games and all of that, I think it's important to remember this tremendous opportunity we have at this time to not waste this time, but to try to follow what our religious leaders had been telling us so beautifully. And I'm sorry, I'm on another meeting in exactly 1 minute, but this expression, the solitude of God, I think it has struck me very deeply. It means that it's really okay to be alone. It's really okay to be in solitude together with God. And I think that's a topic that I personally would like to explore much further, because I think it would be a tremendous help to many people to learn about the solitude of God, because we know how this world suffers from solitude. So in deep gratefulness to all of you again, and I have to excuse myself for having to turn off now. Blessings to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. And it's wonderful that you brought us the Buddhist perspective. We also have Swami Amarananda on the call, so we have a Hindu participant as well. And truly that's an expression of the Elijah Interfaith Institute, that we like to bring as many of the world's great religions together as possible. Our time is really at an end. I want to thank everybody. I'll just sort of make a bit of if you like, an ad. If you go to Elijah's Facebook page, at the beginning of Ramadan, I published a small piece about the fact that we can all participate in Ramadan this year, because we are all home and we all have time to contemplate, and we all have time to go deeper within ourselves. And as Lara said just a few minutes ago, it's wonderful to go more deeply inside ourselves, but it's also wonderful to come out at the end and have community. And we've been able to do it this way. So I think it's been a true expression of Ramadan for us to contemplate deeply, but to join together in community as well. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. I'm honored to be part of the Elijah Interfaith Institute, and thus also a partner in Praying Together in Jerusalem. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon.